Currently the Harford County Executive, but my career has actually been for 34 years as a teacher and assistant principal in middle school, a lifelong resident of Maryland, actually the 10th generation of my family to live in the state of Maryland, and married my wife, Melinda. She was my high school sweetheart, and we've been married for 43 years. We have 3 adult children. They're all married. They've given us 8 grandchildren. And one of the things that was very interesting was 2 days ago, our oldest grandchild, Bridget, had her 12th birthday. And I remember when our daughter, she's our oldest daughter, but our middle child, when she was pregnant, she had her sonogram done, and she came home, and she showed it to him, and she goes, "Dad, can somebody explain to me why they don't believe that this is actually a baby?" And I thought, how good for you to understand that. And all of our children have been that way. When it comes to public service, I can say I started in public service actually teaching Sunday school at the Harvard Grace United Methodist Church, where I was baptized when I was 2 months old. And the church that where my father grew up was started by his grandfather, who was a veteran of the Civil War, which shows how long our family goes back. And I do tell people jokingly, when I asked my wife to marry me, I also said I want you to be buried with me. You know, we go to that cemetery on a regular basis. Last year, actually, when I turned 64, I told her to come home, and she came out on the porch, and I said, push the button. She pushed the button, and the Beatles song came on when I was 64. And this is a true story. When we started dating, that was the month that song came out, and I said, I hope we're still married when I'm 64. So we want to give you a true voice on all the issues that you're going to be concerned with when you bring them up tonight. Thank you for being here.
Okay, I'm going to pull a little bit of MC's prerogative, and some of these questions I think can be answered in a minute. So we will revert to the 2 minutes, so everybody's going to get a fair shot. But let's go with 1 minute in this first one. Abortion is legal through all 9 months of pregnancy in Maryland, and there is a late-term abortion facility 1 mile from here. At what point, I mean a month, in a woman's pregnancy would you support making abortion illegal? Please be specific and explain the basis for it. In other words, if you think it's okay for 3 months, that's what I want to hear and your basis for that. David, you're first.
In my career, I've also been a member of the House of Delegates and a member of the State Senate. And I'm very proud that I went there in 1991. That was when they had the big issue about abortion. And I staunchly stood up against abortion, pro-life, and that was 100%. Didn't matter when it started. As soon as the person found out that they were pregnant, that's when I said they shouldn't have an abortion. That's just the way life is. And some people say, well, how do you feel about women's rights? I mean, what about the 50% of those little babies that were women that had their rights taken away because they never got to be born? I did vote on issues like that, and when I was in the Senate, we voted to finish the rights to have partial birth abortion. We actually got the bill passed out of the Senate, and the House killed that bill. So we stood up for that issue 100%.
Charlie?
This can become an emotional issue pretty quickly, especially for me. My grandson isn't but 16 months old, and he's just the joy of my life. I enjoy going home even more so than I ever had before. And looking at that, now my baby boy, he wasn't born in the best of circumstances. I'll be the first to tell you that if I could wave a magic wand and do it over again to make sure my daughter and her boyfriend made the right decision, I would have done so. But every day I look at that little boy, and I just thank the good Lord that he's here. Life begins at conception. I don't know any other way to say it. Absolutely. And I intend to govern that way every day that you allow me to serve you as your governor in this state. Now, I do understand that people want to play politics with this issue. I'm not interested in doing that. One stark difference between myself and my counterparts is I'm not a career politician. I'm a Marine Corps officer, and I'm a businessman and a grandfather. I intend to govern from that perspective. Life begins at conception. I wish I had more time to elaborate on it, but I will.
Thank you. Okay, second question. As Governor of Maryland, you will have executive powers far greater than merely signing bills in the legislature. Concerning issues of interest to pro-life citizens, we see very little likelihood of any legislation emerging from the Maryland State Legislature. Therefore, we are particularly interested in the executive opportunities presented to you as governor. if elected governor of Maryland, and I want to keep this to a minute each because I think these are short, would you eliminate funding in the budget to Planned Parenthood? Charles, you're first.
You know what, without question, many of you have been on my website. If not, go on there. It's a policy under the tab abortion. Take a look at that, Lollar, the number 4governor.com. We will ensure and audit every book of Planned Parenthood in our state to ensure the money's going where it's supposed to. One of the reasons why I chose Ken Timmerman as my lieutenant governor, as an investigative reporter, I'm going to turn those audits over to him. That includes every penny that the state gives to nonprofits, and that includes Planned Parenthood. And when we find any penny that goes anywhere near the support of abortion, we will cut it. I intend to do so and use my executive privilege as governor to do that.
Well, when you see when you send the survey out, you can see I gave a very simple answer. Yes. Now, not a career politician, a career teacher, but a career public servant for 32 years in public office. Never made my career that way, but the answer is very simple. Yes, we will cut it, because I learned that very early on when I was a member of the House of Delegates from a doctor who said he had done abortions for about 10 years, and it was all money. It was all cash. He knew he could get the money right away. All the other things they had to put in a request for it. He said, but that way they had to pay cash when we came in. And Planned Parenthood is all about cash. That's what it is. And so we need to undermine that. And I actually, as the county executive of Harford County, we stopped making donations to the United Charities that they have because they were giving money to Planned Parenthood. So we already stopped it at our level.
Let me want a follow-up question on this. Charles, I got the impression from your response that you're going to make sure Planned Parenthood doesn't spend their money for abortions. Unfortunately, that's what we call fungible money. So if they're keeping their clinic open and doing the other nefarious stuff with state money, then they don't need to use it for abortion. So my question is, would you support a law that said any organization that supports or does abortions will not receive any state money? And both people can respond. Just a yes or no. Or go ahead, take a minute.
I can't do yes or no on that because I'm going to leave here with my integrity. Here's the problem with that. Planned Parenthood has a history of helping women in other areas. And this is where we always get ourselves in trouble, and they demonize us quickly. They'll use a portion of their contributions for one thing and a portion for another. If you slam the entire Planned Parenthood, then they're going to take me and you, all of us in this room, and graft us and say they don't care about women. And it has nothing to do with the truth. We absolutely do care about women. And when people give their private contributions for the purpose of abortion, where I do not agree with that, please understand this, they have to give an account for what they do. As your governor, I am concerned about that. I remember the text when I read that Christ looked at his disciples. He said, I put before you both life and death. He said, I'd rather you choose life. Christ never made anyone do anything. They understood the power of free will. I will protect women with 4 daughters as much as I can. I will not support abortion whatsoever. So I will have to track those dollars to ensure they're not going for that purpose of abortion.
David?
Very simple. Take it separate from abortion issue. If they were selling drugs, no, I wouldn't give them any state money. I'm not going to give any group any money to do anything if they're doing something else illegal, because you're helping them do that. So the answer would be no. We would completely not fund Planned Parenthood.
Okay, next question. Would you support classifying abortion centers as ambulatory surgical centers, which will require more safety inspections and regulation? David, you're first.
Yes, and a little brief on that one. Again, if you look at the survey, our answer was just yes. We do need to do that. We will make it that it has to be done that way. So the answer is yes. We'll keep it at 15 seconds.
Are we at 45? Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely yes. And in fact, if you go on our website, you'll see that's under that tab abortion at Lollar, the number 4.com. That's already in our policy. Yes.
Great. Okay, next question, and this goes to Charles. Require that all doctors have hospital privileges within 15 miles of their surgical center. To support revocation of medical license of any doctor violating this. Charles, you're first. The problem was...
Yeah, give me more history on that.
Yeah, in this area, Carhartt did not have accepting privileges at any of the hospitals around here, and several gals have had to be taken to hospitals, one died. And other states have used that. If you don't have admitting privileges, you can't do abortions in their states. So my question is,
Yes.
do you support that?
Yes.
Okay?
And the answer from us was also yes.
Okay. So we'll be out here by 8 o'clock. Okay, next is David. Would you appoint a pro-life doctor to head the Department of Health and Welfare? And the reason we're asking that is they're the ones that make decisions on handing out contraceptives to minors.
The answer to the survey is yes. It may not actually be a doctor. Sometimes you don't appoint someone like that. It may be someone who's experienced in medical aspects, but they're not actually a physician. But it would be someone with the background that you mentioned.
Okay. Charles?
Yes, I will hire those that most align themselves with my philosophies, and that includes being pro-life.
Okay, specifically regarding late-term abortionist Leroy Carhart, who travels from Nebraska to do abortions here every week. What would you specifically do to try and force Carhart out of Maryland as far as his medical license, revoking that, appointing pro-life members, the Maryland Board of Physicians, etc.? Let's see, that would be Charles, you're first.
All of the above, but again, I would enforce the law. We'd ensure that that law was passed that maintained that you have to be within 15 miles of the hospital, your practice, excuse me, and if we enforce the law, that should be simple enough to keep him out of this state to be able to practice those.
David?
As governor, you're not allowed to remove the license of someone, but it would be about appointing the proper people to the board who would actually do the removal of that. And that varies from every career that you see out there, not just doctors, but it would be teachers and anything else. So one of the important things is to appoint a board. And as county executive, I've had to appoint over 17 different boards, and we're always very strict on who we put on those boards and get them appointed. So we've done it in the past and we know how to do it, but we're all going to have a challenge at the state level because there's so many boards that you have. And sometimes the governor will appoint someone and they're still on there when you're gone as governor, because some of those terms are 5-year terms. So we have to be very good about making sure we put good new people on there.
Okay, the next one is for Charles. What specific, actually, I apologize. This should be David. David should start this one. What specifically will you do as governor, considering you will likely face a politically hostile legislature to change or repeal the so-called rain tax?
Well, it's interesting to talk about rain tax here. I tell people, thank God we didn't have a snow tax this past year. If we had heard, don't tell the governor that because he would have imposed that on everybody. The reality is that having been a mayor and a county executive, I do know how to get legislature passed. I know how to get it done. We've done it many times. 90% of the legislature in Harford County, I'm responsible for getting that done, and we do get it done. So we have the ability to do it. And I've been down there hundreds of times speaking on things. I was actually the first one to actually come out and speak against the rain tax because it was a double tax on your property. It was not correct. And the one reminder I tell people is the only true impervious surface in the state of Maryland is Martin O'Malley's brain.
The EPA mandated that on 6 different states. Only one decided to move on that legislatively, and that was the state of Maryland. We're always rushing into these policies to hurt Maryland first. Whether it's the rain tax or the Affordable Health Care Act, every time I turn around, it's just as quickly as we can to hurt Maryland first, using partisan politics as a divide to try to so-called push these issues through. All we have to do, the same way the governor of Virginia did it at his point, Pennsylvania, et cetera, is ensure that we don't enforce the mandate by the EPA, which makes it really easy, considering the fact that this rain tax impacts county to county. The money that's collected doesn't even make it back to the state government, doesn't go back to the federal government. It actually stays in counties. County officials actually have the leadership and the ability to zero the line out. It was done in Carroll County. Frederick County, I think they charged a penny. These other counties decided to go along with it. Don't ask me why. We have to stop that completely. But as long as the governor, as your leader and as your executive, doesn't support it and don't push the mandate, we don't have to tolerate it, and I intend not to.
Okay, since we're moving a little bit quicker, I'm going to give 2 minutes to each of the candidates. This is a new area, and I'd like to ask, what specifically would you do to make Maryland friendlier to small business and large manufacturing? Charles, you're first. Take 2 minutes.
When having when having conversations with many of the businesses that have left us, some of which I've had a chance to work with on my finance board, there's 3 reasons why they're leaving. And number 1 is the tax environment in the state is ridiculously difficult. It's very difficult. Number 2 is the regulations, and number 3 are the fees. We make it so hard to do business here. Here's what we'll do. Number 1, we'll pass a real taxpayer's bill of rights. We'll ensure that we control the spending and the growth of our government here in the state. I was at a overview of the General Assembly last year, meeting in Annapolis, and it's filled with left-leaning economists. And I challenged the economists up there. You've given me solutions because we currently have a $240 million structural deficit this year. And the only solution he has for us going into fiscal year 2015 is to increase more taxes. I challenge him, what are we doing in terms of limiting government? What types of research has your organization done to specifically ensure that we go the other way and limit the growth of government instead of producing all of these taxes? He had no answer for me. Of course, I was booed out of the room, but it's okay. Someone's got to be a voice for small business and everyday Maryland citizens. We'll pass the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. We'll ensure that the growth of government no longer exceeds cost of living or CPI. Second thing we want to do is eliminate personal income tax over a 5-year period. We can get this done. 2019, you'll wake up without a personal income tax in this state. And we can do so without increasing property taxes, without increasing sales taxes. We can do so simply by making sure that we're limiting the growth of government. We itemize every tax bill, not itemize, we analyze every tax bill that's been pushed upon us, and that 2 minutes went fast, that's been pushed upon us over the past 8 years. And by doing so, we create a better environment by which to do business here in the state of Maryland. We can bring business back if we simply make it easier for businesses to do business here in Maryland.
Well, we'll take the experience that I have as county executive and the mayor of the city of Havre Grace, and we'll take that to Annapolis. I was the only mayor in the history of a 225-year-old city to actually reduce the property tax, which was the biggest tax they had. And as the county executive, we've lowered our property tax rates twice, which is the biggest tax in Harford County. We stayed below constant yield 4 times, and we lowered our tax cap twice. So that's 8 out of our 9 budgets. Every one was properly balanced, so we know the experience on how to do it. And we've also seen more businesses move to Harford County, unfortunately, than all the other places. So we have over 8,000 more jobs in Harford County than we had when the economy went bad. So we know how to do it. Key is basically it's like a 3-level thing. We have to reduce taxes in some cases and eliminate taxes in other cases. We have to eliminate some of the regulations, and we have to allow private businesses to create the jobs. I didn't create any of those 8,000 jobs. Private businesses created them. The main tax that affects people is the income tax. 94% of our small business owners pay their tax, not through the corporate income tax, but through the personal income tax. And we will, in the first year that I'm governor, we will phase that out so that we lower the percentage and we increase your exemption. 2 years later, we will continue that, and in the 5th year, it will be the state income tax will be eliminated. But we will also attack other taxes that affect you businesses. For example, the gasoline tax and the tolls that people have to pay. A lot of businesses are no longer competitive because to get to that business, you have to pay $8 for the toll, or you have to pay such a higher fee for your gas tax. So those are some of the ones. The other final thing that needs to be done is appoint someone who's very good as the Director of Economic Development, who knows how to reach out to the current businesses. Let's keep the businesses that are here first before you go to India to try to attract the businesses. And that's what we should do.
The Fairness for All Marylanders Act, which some of us call the Gender Neutrality Act, was recently passed to include gender identity as a protected class which cannot be discriminated against. There's some argument about exactly what that will do, but some of the things that have happened in other states include boys playing on or demanding to play on girls' sports teams, boys going into girls' locker rooms, using bathroom facilities, etc. What is your position on this law? David, you're first.
We,
Go with just 1 minute.
okay. As a county executive, we oppose the bill, and as a candidate, we have had the petitions at all of our functions so that people can sign them. I can tell you, I don't want any of my 5 granddaughters to walk into a bathroom and know that some man can just walk in there that day and feel like he's a woman, and the next day he doesn't. And he can just change what he wants to do. I don't want them playing on a team when someone's made that decision. We need to repeal that. And it is going to be tough to get some of those liberals down there, but we need you to get out and elect good people in the House and Senate, so we have better votes on the House and Senate floor. But we're going to fight that issue.
I guarantee you that I'll be following my daughters into a lot of bathrooms.
We don't want that.
To say the least. Listen, we'll both agree, and probably Ron would as well, and Larry in his absence, that this bill is asinine. But it's a bigger problem than that, ladies and gentlemen. We have to stop falling asleep at the wheel. This is our government. These people have way too much time on their hands. You elect Lollar and Timmerman as governor and lieutenant governor. We will work hard for term limits, number 1. And then number 2, we're going to work hard to see if we can get the General Assembly to meet every odd year instead of every other year to force these politicians to go home and get a job. They have too much time on their hands. If they can spend 45 days and endless amounts of your tax dollars to argue over a transgender bill while they're getting paid per diem and then vote to increase their pay, these people have way too much time on their hands. We created this because we fell asleep at the wheel. Your job is to contact as many people that you know when you leave here. Tell them you met a guy named Charles Lollar, he's great, vote him for governor so we can change this madness.
Just a point of education, believe it or not, I was informed by somebody who actually got a set-aside contract in Montgomery County. The set-asides were supposed to be for women and minority-owned businesses, and he went in and said, I feel like a woman today, and he got the job. Now, he's qualified to do the job, okay? But there's no way of analyzing how you feel, who you feel, or whatever. And that's the problem. If you read the gender neutrality bill, it says you have to have been doing it for a certain amount. There's no standard, so anybody can say anything they want at any time. Okay, that's where the big problem's going to come in with that. Okay. What would you, okay, who's first? Charles went last, so Charles is first this time. What would you do to make Maryland more family-friendly in terms of vouchers, tax rebates, or tax credits to make charter schools, private schools, or homeschooling affordable or more affordable for families of average means? Charles, take 2 minutes.
Are you on my committee? No, seriously, you can't make this up. Lollar, the #4governor.com. Go to our education tab. You'll see that part of our policy, our education policy, is to ensure that every parent and their student is provided school choice, which means whether they want to send their child to a public school, a charter school, or a private school, not only should they have the choice, but their tax dollars should follow their decision. They should not have to double pay and pay twice because that money is already there. My wife and I had a really strange encounter when her and I made a decision to homeschool our children, our 3 girls, because one's in college. And 2 of them are athletic. They wanted to play sports, lacrosse, and soccer at their local school. We took them down so they could play in their local school. And the local school board said, well, no, they can't play for the school because you homeschool your children. I said, let me get this straight. I'm paying tax dollars currently and helping you by taking the burden off the schools by homeschooling on my own dime, but yet the tax dollars I pay to support your sports system, they can't be a part of. That's correct. You can't do anything about that. We're not going to play sports for this public school. I looked at that school board and said, you haven't heard the last of this. This is something that I believe and know that we have to change because it's wrong. We need to empower parents and students so that the upper class or millionaires or whoever that is, if President Obama can afford to send his children to a private school, then why shouldn't you and I? For me, it's that simple. So yes, our education policy will allow for tax dollars to follow parents and students' choice, no matter where they go to school. And oh, by the way, with my last 15 seconds, they're already doing it with charter schools. All the school board has to do is appropriate the money to a private school the same way they do for charter schools right now.
It's always good to say you support it, but I've actually voted for it. I actually voted for voucher programs back in the 1990s. I actually voted for charter schools back in the 1990s. As an assistant principal, we supported the fact that children that were homeschooled might come to us for their EPAs to understand what their education issues were. We stood up for the private schools that we had that had those issues. And I can also say that my wife serves on the Harvard United Charities, and she's helped raise $800,000. That some of that has gone to some of those private schools where a kid might have autism or separate issues like that, and help the money go there. And it's unfortunate because people that go to that particular school have to pay $18,000 to go there, and yet their parents are paying all these taxes. So we would be in favor of continuing that. That charter schools, private schools, the money should follow the child, not the school.
Okay, David, this one's for you. How will you restrict the sale of artificial birth control drugs, including abortifacients, Plan B, to minors without parental consent, which is allowed in this state?
You know, when I was a member of the House of Delegates, it was very frustrating that they wanted to make it so that a 13-year-old girl could have an abortion. Yeah, but as an assistant principal, I had to get her parents to sign off to have her go on a field trip. That's ridiculous. You know, it is nice to say they should have rights, but I am sorry, not under a certain age. No, that is you're their parents. You're the ones that's connected with their life. You should be making that decision with them and for them. And if you're a good parent, you're going to help them learn how to make that decision, whatever it might be. But I don't want the government telling me what I need to do with any of my children or any of my grandchildren. That's not their job. So we would try to get legislation passed on that.
I agree with David. I think it's that simple. I think we have a leadership issue though. And before I get too passionate and too emotional about it, again, that's we as citizens here in our state just literally falling asleep at the wheel and not doing all we can to make sure we energize our neighbors and our friends to get more involved. And quite honestly, we have to stop allowing these politicians to separate us based upon party affiliation. We need to have conversations with Democrats, Independents, Republicans. These issues aren't partisan. They're not partisan. These issues are about moral and ethical integrity that we have to maintain in our state. It's a leadership issue. As your leader here in this state, I will ensure that every parent is responsible for their child. And a 13-year-old or 14-year-old just can't have their way in terms of getting prescription drugs, getting abortions, whatever the case may be. They can't just do that without your parental consent. And then we have to ensure that we use the bully pulpit as your governor to go around the state and start talking about family issues. I can't wait to do that, to have conferences at high schools and colleges and talk about the importance of family, because without family, we won't have a strong society.
Information, if you don't know, your kid cannot get an aspirin at school without your permission, but they can get any kind of birth control and get an abortion without it. I don't care what party you're from, most people should have a problem with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, Charles, you're up. Will you support abstinence-only sex education programs in the school?
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Let's make it a short answer.
Oh, man.
I'll make this answer short. You've got a lot of questions.
Okay.
David?
Yes, I did that as an assistant principal, so I've done it already.
Okay. The governor appoints the boards to decide on research grants. Will you ensure that embryonic stem cell research will be defunded and adult stem cell research increase?
I will.
Yes, that was it. We did that in the survey too. We answered that in the survey.
Okay. Will you exempt Maryland employers from complying with those aspects of Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act that violate their freedom to adhere to the religious beliefs?
That's a no-brainer. I will, but in addition to that, let me say this, please. We can...
Go ahead, take a minute.
Oh, thank you.
Start there.
Thank you. We can pass a private health care exchange here in our state. We don't necessarily have to fold into the pressures of taking in Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act, as long as we as a state, falling back on our 10th Amendment rights, can create our own private health exchange and allow for citizens here in Maryland to participate in that exchange of their own free will, and allow for competition across state lines for other healthcare companies and not just the big boys, which will drive the cost of healthcare down. We don't have to make this a partisan issue. This is not because Maryland doesn't like President Obama. We have plenty of respect for President Obama, but we don't need a healthcare plan, an Affordable Health Care Act, when we as Marylanders can do it ourselves. Me as your governor will lead that path to ensure that we are able to provide affordable health care through a private exchange and no longer infringe upon the constitutional rights of everyday Marylanders.
I strongly believe if you have a business, you should be allowed to make those decisions. The government should not impose those decisions on you, especially if it's a religious issue that you have on why you don't want to do it. And so we would support that. And I don't believe on the health care, it's the Unaffordable Care Act, but it's also going to be inaccessible to people because it is undermining private businesses. We did not need to spend $280 million of your taxpayers' dollars for this bureaucracy that the governor wanted to create in terms of paying back someone who had donated a couple $100,000 to the Democratic Governors Association. We had over 2,000 brokers in this state who could have done that without government being involved at all. They were already able to do it, and they had been doing it. So we didn't need to do that. And I'm sure none of you would want them to do that when you want to go buy a ticket to get on an airplane or anything else like that. You should have that ability to pick who you want for whatever service it is.
Given that you need a government ID to get on an airplane, pick up a prescription, get on a bus,
Go into a government building.
go to a government, you can't get in the Justice Department without a government ID. So, do you support voter ID? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, I did, because I served on the election committee in the General Assembly and fought for that issue. I can tell you, just yesterday I went to a private event and I had to show an ID to go into that. And I went to a bank about 6 months ago to deposit money and I had to show an ID. I wasn't even taking it out. So that is ridiculous that they don't insist on that.
Okay, to obtain the revenue supposedly we need for roads and infrastructure, will you raise the gasoline tax? Yes or no?
No, and let me make sure I explain that too, since we're recording this. The problem is not that we don't have the funds for proper transportation and maintenance of roads. The problem is we keep robbing the Transportation Trust Fund and dumping it in other areas and then find an excuse to take even more money from you through taxes. We have not had the chance, and I will take that chance, to be able to explain what the real problem is in terms of how we conduct our business. Now, Ken came in. Stand up, Ken. This is my Lieutenant Governor candidate for, he's going to be your next Lieutenant Governor. Investigative reporter, bestseller. If I can throw that out there to him, he's got a book on Benghazi coming out in June. We will audit every single one of these 84 tax bills, okay? Every single one, and these fees and regulations to ensure the money is going to go. We'll create an enforceable lockbox on these funds to ensure you're no longer legislated to be able to rob Peter to pay Paul. And we'll also ensure that those tax bills that have been passed, if they don't get to the intended place where they're supposed to go, we're going to phase those bills out over 3 years, post them on a website so you can see the author of those bills and know how much of your money has been wasted. We have to do a better job being better stewards and more efficient in how we spend the people's money. As a businessman for the past 16 years and as an executive with a Fortune 500 company, these are things that Ken and I know how to do. We'll insist upon them. So when I say no, I don't want the other side of the aisle, my friend saying Charles just doesn't want good roads. I do want good roads. We have the money for good roads, but we can have those good roads without wasting our money on other things like $300 million on a failed windmill project or $240 million we wasted on a website that still doesn't work.
Unfortunately, he won't be the next Lieutenant Governor. Jeannie Hathaway will be. We have a woman on our ticket who actually understands this issue and has voted against these types of things and stealing that money, and I did too. And as the mayor of Harvey Grayson County Executive, we blame it on the current governor. You know the last 3 governors all did that? 1 Republican and 2 Democrats all stole your money and put it into another account and took it from us. For Harvey County, that cost me $60 million that they stole from us. So we know how to do it, and we know how to fight that issue to make sure. But also, it's nice to talk about audits because I'm the one county executive, the one person up here who actually we have an auditor look at every aspect of Harford County government in a transparent way to make sure that money is spent the way it is supposed to spend. So it's nice to say you want to do it, but it's better to say you did it.
Okay, would each of you take 2 minutes, and we'll start with David, and give us specific Maryland government programs that you would cut?
Every one of them. You don't need any more than that. Every one of them can be reduced, and every one of them will be reduced. And when I became the county executive, the first thing I did is I told all my department heads, you had to reduce your budget by 5%. And they did. And this year, we were the one county government that actually reduced the size of our budget, not like the governor talks about when he says he reduces the expansion. We reduced the size of our budget by $80 million. Nobody knows of any lost service because we get rid of all the duplication that exists in there that we don't need. And that happens, and that is so huge at the state level that every department will see things disappear, and gradually we will merge departments back. And I did that as county executive. We actually took departments and merged them together to reduce the size and the duplication in government. So every one of them.
Okay. What's your stand on capital? Charles. I'm sorry. But I'm not saying Charles. Charles, go ahead. That's why you guys are here.
I get an extra 30 seconds for that.
Yeah.
We have any businessmen and women in this crowd? Outstanding. Listen, I want you all to refer to the folks who raised their hands for the sake of clarity, because I don't want you hoodwinked before you leave here. I'm a 6 Sigma black belt with my corporation. A lot of you all that raise your hand know what that means. Absolutely, which means we actually do audits in the private sector. So I don't want anyone thinking that I don't understand and do audits. We do them all the time. We do them for private business, for money that we're held accountable to from our customers, not tax dollars brought to us, but just for clarity purpose. I'm a 6 Sigma black belt. Please explain that. And you might want to explain it to a few others that might not understand that. But when you talk about departments to cut, which ones specifically? It'll be easy to cut them all when you start with zero-based budgeting. And what I want my friends on the other side of the aisle that will see this video to understand is this is not necessarily an all-out war against you as the Democratic Party or O'Malley or whatever the case may be, but it is a war against inefficient spending of over $40 billion in current revenues. Folks, $1 billion is a lot of money. You can't tell me that in these departments that there are not probably even worse than that, there are not areas in any budget that you can cut. Even in your home budget, some of you make $125,000, $225,000, maybe $65,000 a year. But you can always find an extra $5, $15, $20, $40 to cut. On $39 billion, we can find a couple $100 million if not more than that, to cut in every area without compromising vital essential services. This experience that we have, Lollar Timberland, is going to be important because we're going to take that into Annapolis to ensure that every department is looked at. We're going to take our 16 secretaries and we're going to cut them by 60% to 4, create an additional 12 assistant secretaries. That's what, 30 more seconds. That's going to give us at least, that's going to save you at least $30 million off the bat. There are things that we can do right off the bat in each and every department, and we don't, again, have to sacrifice necessary essential services, but we're going to have to make our government more efficient.
Okay, what's your stand on capital punishment? Take a minute. Charles, you're first.
I agree with it, but I agree with it for the right reasons. I've had conversations with Sheriff Little, Sheriff Hyde, 6 or 7 other sheriffs, Sheriff Jenkins in Frederick County, all different party affiliations, all different skin colors. They'll tell you the same thing. We need that to protect not just the everyday our officers that actually maintain our jails and prison systems. Because if you don't have something that you can use to say, listen, if you take this one step further, this can also cost you your life, then what do they have to keep them from doing anything they want to do if they already have life in jail? So we have to help protect our civil servants that are protecting those prisons, but also it's a necessary resource for our officers and law enforcement agents as well on the street. There are crimes out there that are heinous enough that in my opinion, should require the death penalty. So yes, I do agree with it.
would have been much better to get rid of the death tax than the death penalty. I think it would help more people stay here because people don't want to die in the state of Maryland anymore because it costs you so much to live here. But I have always been opposed to eliminating the death penalty. How many people watched what happened up in Connecticut about 2 years ago and would feel it was okay if that guy had not been shot and killed? It would have been, oh, he's just going to jail for a while. You know, they killed 20+ little children. So I support the fact that it wouldn't just be about police officers or firefighters, people wearing uniforms, people that make that commitment to protect your life. But when it comes to that, when it comes to someone who rapes someone and then murders them, I think that's probably the worst crime anybody can do. So no, they need that there. And you know, I work not just with the sheriff, but also with the state's attorney. The state's attorney is the one who needs that information when they prosecute that person to make sure that they can get that person in jail and they can get them in jail the right way with the death penalty.
Okay, what about assisted euthanasia? David, you're first. 1 minute.
I'm opposed to any of the euthanasia, whether it's for whatever it is. That's the same as all the other issues. So real simple. No, it should not happen.
This is taking an active, giving somebody a drug actively, okay, not, you know. Charles, are you done, David?
Yes. He would agree.
Charles.
That's a tough one. That's a very difficult one. The faith part of me, because I do love the Lord Jesus, I do realize that this is not my last stop. In fact, I'm looking forward to one day crossing the Jordan and spending more time with my grandparents and meeting and talking to Peter, trying to find out how he actually walked on water, have conversations with Paul. A lot of conversations I want to have. I don't believe that this is my end. I think this is just the beginning of something great. But with that in mind, I respect and I honor life to the nth degree as Christ did and as he taught. Those family decisions that are made one-on-one, there is a place and time that someone can get to in those private times and conversations that I've seen and have personal experience with, where someone wants to be let go. That decision needs to be left to families. And I think it's that important for me to say that even if it means I'll lose a vote, I'm okay with that. At least you know my heart.
Well, let me be clear here. So in other words, if a family wanted to get rid of an older one, you would support pass them on into eternity or whatever you want to call it. You would support them getting a shot of sodium pentothal if the family said it was okay.
Sir,
whatever.
Sir,
it's
not about whatever, and that's the problem I have. And Barry, I don't want to be confrontative, but it is so much more. If you've been through it, you've actually lived and seen it, and been by the bedside. It's a different conversation.
No,
it's not just whatever. If you ask me if I'm opposed to killing, I'll tell you I'm opposed to killing unless you've done something to deserve it. That's why I support the death penalty. But when it comes to euthanasia, that is a personal conversation between loved ones. It is not a whatever conversation. I have never been in a room with someone, and pastoring for 15 years, I've never had someone say it's a whatever, just let them go. It's not that easy.
Let me rephrase. In Minnesota, you can actively kill somebody. In Maryland, you can't. As the governor, if a bill comes to your desk saying that we want to be able to kill some, or give them, whatever you want to call it, have them passed on, they're suffering so much we don't want them to suffer, you would support legalizing a doctor giving a drug to kill somebody. That's all the question is. We can all come up with emotional, if you want to support that, that's okay. But that's a stand. As governor, you're going to get the bill. You're either going to sign it or you're not going to sign it. That's all I'm asking. Would you sign it? If you would, I'm not judging your opinion, but that's what it comes down to.
I'll give you one little story, personal story about making that decision. 3 years ago, my father, we knew he was going to pass away. My wife and I had already talked with the hospice people, but we knew he wasn't even going to make it that long. And it was a Saturday, and we're sitting there with him, and he had basically not been able to communicate for a while. And I leaned over to him. I'm holding his hand, and he hadn't responded to anything I had said for over an hour. And I said, "Dad, today is Donovan's birthday." That's our grandson. And I said, "You can't leave today." And he squeezed my hand. And the next day, he left. And I can tell you, when my wife's mother passed away, we were in the hospice, and my wife was sitting there, and I'm sitting there. My wife was tired, and she went up to another room, And I leaned over to Vi, my mother-in-law, and I said, Vi, you can go now. Because she didn't want to leave when Melinda was there. And about 15 minutes later, she passed away, and then I brought my wife back in, and it was just, it let the nurse get her sort of ready, you know, for that whole situation, so I would oppose it.
Okay, this is from the audience.
Barry, that is something, just to finish, I want to make sure, thank you, brother, that is something I'm going to have to pray about.
Great.
That is something I'm going to have to personally pray about. I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, this came from the audience, so don't think I'm crying. And I think you both stated you're Christians, but they said, do you attend church, synagogue, or mosque, and how often?
Weekly.
I'm a member of the Have Grace United Methodist Church, and we live right across the street, and we live right next to the pastor, so it's very hard not to attend. For 10 years I was the Sunday school superintendent, and my wife was a Sunday school teacher. The kids go sing in the choir, in the children's choir. So we are, unless I've been, the only time I don't go is when I've been asked to attend another church in Harford County to, either they might have a new bishop coming in, or maybe it's their 100th anniversary or something like that. And I don't attend, the only time I don't attend is when I've been asked to do that.
Okay. The recent Gallup poll showed that 47% of Marylanders want to leave the state, ranking third behind Illinois and Connecticut. I'm from Illinois, and my sister lives in Connecticut, so I can relate. What do you think is causing this, other than taxes? Because I think we've already covered taxes. And what would you do to reverse this trend? I think we're engaged.
I saw the survey that they did, and they came out and said that people are making that decision based on the weather and all sorts of other things. Every place I go, I mean, I've been traveling around the state for a long time, and everywhere I am, I'm always talking to someone. They said, we're retiring, we're leaving, we're selling our business, we're leaving, we're moving. Our grandchildren are still living here, but we don't want to leave, but we are leaving. And they go to a state like Delaware, no income tax. Tennessee, no income tax. Texas, no income tax. South Carolina, no income tax. Florida, no income tax. It's all about taxes. It is almost all about taxes and the undermined economy that it's done. So we need, that's why we need to repeal some of the taxes, lower some of the taxes, and then spend the money more efficiently so they actually will want to stay here where they should hopefully want to live the rest of their life. Because I want to live here the rest of my life so I can be with the 12th generation of my family.
Sure.
It's more than just taxes, and believe it or not, it's more than just regulations and fees. I'll take you to a conversation I had with my daughter after the 2010 election, and then going forward about a year after I came back from being deployed, and she said, Dad, why in the world would you have us live here after the last bill, the gambling bill that was passed, and then following that, the abortion, and these other bills that were passed, same-sex marriage was passed, and her question was, Dad, this state represents everything you raised us against. Why are we still here? Shortly thereafter, my daughter switched from St. Mary's College to Kennesaw State University in Georgia. So now she goes to school down in Georgia. We have an integrity and moral issue here in the state. And it's time for you, as the citizen of the state of Maryland, to stop giving politicians a free pass and how they live their personal lives. It's important for you to hold us accountable to ensure that we live the right way and not just talk the right way, but our personal lives should follow that example. And I could be very much more specific if I had more time to do so. But we have ethical and moral integrity issues in the state, along with excess taxation.
Next. Okay, this is the Charles first. Do you support the DREAM Act, which allowed in-state tuition to Maryland universities for the children of illegal or undocumented, whatever you want to call them?
Yep. I did not, and I still don't. But again, we have a messaging problem here, folks. We have to do a better job explaining to all citizens involved why the DREAM Act doesn't work. I sat across from a Latino pastor in Baltimore City. I wanted his help in this election. I wanted his support. He invited me back, and he looked at me and he said, Charles, how in the world can I support you when I know for a fact that you dislike Hispanics? And so I asked him, why in the world would you say that? Pastor said, I've seen your YouTube videos. I saw you on Lawyers Mall, and I heard what you had to say about the DREAM Act. you didn't support it. I said, sir, I didn't support it, but that doesn't mean that I dislike Hispanics or Latino Americans. I said, consider this. My daughter is now going to Kennesaw State University. She pays $23,000. I pay $23,000 a year for her tuition. She was born in Georgia, in Cobb County, Georgia. If she was an in-state resident, she'd only pay $6,000 a year. $23,000, $6,000 a year. Who's fighting for my daughter to give her in-state tuition? Who's going to say, you know, where's that DREAM Act there? But the bottom line is, I told the pastor, it's not fair for those that are paying their fair share to have to go through a process by which someone who's not even a citizen of the nation, when you have citizens of this country who can't even come to Maryland and get a break on tuition. After explaining it that way, the pastor looked at me and said, you know what, Charles, you have something there. And then I looked back at him, I said, we have to find a way to work together to find a solution so we can go forward. We can't keep kicking this can down the road. The DREAM Act is something that cannot work in Maryland because, yes, boo all you want, because
we'd like to ask people not to.
I don't mind it at all. I hope you boo and you can text it and come up and talk to me. I'm here. And I'm not running away from it. But it is something that we are going to have to fix this immigration issue so we can create fairness for all Marylanders.
This is again one of the, as county executive, one of the mandates that comes down from state government that I oppose, because it really impacted county governments more than it impacted anything at the state, because it only right now affects community colleges. And we have Hartford Community College, and it's actually more expensive for someone from Cecil County to come from Hartford Community College than if they were the child of an illegal immigrant. So we were opposed to that legislation. It's not fair for someone to get a lesser charge. Plus, if they're 18 or over, they're no longer just the child of an illegal immigrant. I mean, I'm the child of someone. I'm 65. You know, does that mean I'm still a child? Maybe my parents thought I was a child, but that's not the way it should be evaluated. So it was something we opposed, and actually MACO, Maryland Association of Counties, I was president of the Maryland Association of Counties, and we opposed the bill because it was something that was just being shoved down the county government.
Yeah, just a point of information that people are after, the United States takes in 1 million legal immigrants a year, and that is more than the entire world combined. So if anybody tries to make you feel guilty that we as Americans aren't doing our part, we're doing more than the entire world combined. Just a point of interest. Okay, this is for David first. What are your views on gun laws and restrictions in our state?
We have come out very strongly in favor of Second Amendment rights. You can see our bumper stickers. We're in favor of concealed carry. We're in favor of shall issue. The founders of this country were very intelligent about making sure that we could have this freedom to do that, and it needs to be repealed. It is not just because it's undermined businesses and forced some of the businesses to leave the state of Maryland that manufacture weapons, but it's made it, you know, I was in the House of Delegates when William Donald Schaefer brought in that the 22 Saturday night 22s, you know, and I told him, I said, I'm opposing this legislation because you're forcing a criminal now to get a better weapon. Because most likely 5 times, you know, 1/5 of the time, if they shot a 22 at you, it wasn't even going to fire, and most likely it wasn't going to kill you. So we forced them to get a better weapon and made them more aggressive toward people. I do feel that you should have the right to carry a weapon, because if you walk out of here tonight, how many people are going to walk over to you and try to rob you if they think you have a gun? And then I do tell people every April 1st I'm going to send legislation over to the General Assembly, and I think you can understand if it goes over on April 1st how I feel about it. But my legislation on that is if you buy a gun, you paint your door red. If you don't buy a gun, you paint it blue, and that way they'll know which house to rob.
Passover effect. Make sure you keep your pants and your shirts on when you eat your dinner after you bake the lamb. Some of y'all will get that on the way home if you read the book of Exodus. Listen, I'm a Second Amendment Marine. But again, I want to do a better job explaining my position to everyone on every side of the aisle. For me, it's real simple. The Second Amendment is very important to our freedoms. The Founding Fathers didn't come up with the Second Amendment just so we could have a better way to kill deer and go hunting. It It wasn't about deer and hunting. It was about protection of your rights and your freedoms. Just imagine if the Continental Congress had passed a bill back then that said, listen, the only way you can carry anything stronger than a bow and arrow is if you have to fill out these forms or whatever the case may be, because a bow and arrow is all you need to hunt. If that had happened, that legislation had been passed, and the British Redcoats came, we would not be sitting in this room together right now. We are here because we were able and allowed to have the same munition as our adversary or anyone that would seek to take freedoms away from us. We need to explain that better in detail. I will stand for the Second Amendment in the state of Maryland.
Okay, since we are in the process of legalizing medical marijuana, decriminalizing and legalizing in various parts of the country, would you give me your specific stand on, and it should be noted in California where they have legalized medical marijuana, you can get it for depression. Okay, it's not just the kid that's got cancer, it's for depression. Okay, who decided what's depression? So I would like to have each of the candidates address those three issues: medical marijuana, decriminalization, and legalization. And I believe Charles, you're first.
In a Lollar term of administration, marijuana usage will never be legal. It will always be illegal. It is a gateway drug, and it can lead to greater issues and problems. Now, I've heard the argument on both sides when it comes to medical marijuana. We're still looking into that and getting more details on that. I have a couple of problems with it. Number one, the prescriptions, who's giving it, doctors, standards, and how do we ensure that when that prescription is given that it's viable? Again, I'm tired of these laws or these bills where we rush in, these policies, where we rush in to hurt Maryland first. We can already see in Colorado what it's doing and how it's tearing up their law enforcement system. I think 60%, it was last reported, of their law enforcement agents, from sheriffs to local police officers, have to take this training and understanding how to correctly identify someone that's high on marijuana. How do you stop them and give them a breathalyzer? You can't give them a breathalyzer. You actually have to take them, arrest them, and take them actually down to a hospital and check for the levels to see if they're even under the influence of marijuana. It's become an issue. They become behavioral, what do you call them? Behavioral, not identifies, but they have to identify behavioral patterns in order to determine whether somebody's actually high on marijuana or not. It is a ruckus. It's a problem. And listen, with the huge issues we deal with in Maryland, with the economic issues we deal in Maryland, with the moral and integrity issues, what in the world are we talking about marijuana legalization for in the first place? Our administration will stand strongly against the legalization of marijuana.
On the legalization and decriminalization, I'm opposed to it. How many of you would like to go to a doctor tomorrow and think, oh, I wonder if they were smoking marijuana at lunch? You know, not a good thing. How many would want your child, your grandchild, to go to a nursery and think, oh, I wonder if they were smoking marijuana there? We don't want that. We don't need that, because the reality is that people who use marijuana actually have more stress issues, more health care issues than other people. So that's going to create more problems for them. Children who start smoking marijuana as teenagers, by the time they're 25, have lost 10% of their IQ because they're just so much slower. California has now seen the death rate, fatality rate in regular automobile accidents go down. It's gone up 128% when it's associated with using marijuana. So that's not a good thing. And I can tell you as county executive, Harper County right now has 2 sheriff's deputies who are trained to do that out of almost 400. We would have to spend millions of dollars to start training them to do this. So it doesn't need to be done. We need to stop it.
I was thinking in Florida, they just passed a law that anybody on any kind of government assistance is subjected to random drug testing. What is your stand on that, Dave?
Well, I don't like
Are
government.
those on assistance?
Well, I don't like government investigating your personal life. They should have done the background check on why you were getting that assistance in the first place, but they should respect your privacy after that.
Even if you're getting government assistance?
Well, do that on Social Security if you're a veteran, all those types of things. You know, veterans, if you're a wounded veteran.
Okay, let me stop.
So
let me rephrase the question, okay? Veterans have earned their, I'm considering
they still get checked. They still get checked.
Welfare,
if you're wounded in your arm.
Welfare.
Well, it's anybody.
Okay,
Anybody
so
who's
you
getting
support
money
it.
from the government should have their privacy respected.
Charles?
The problem is that you're assuming that the public dollars that they're getting, that they're using them for drugs, and that's a very dangerous assessment. What I'm not going to do is trade one tyrannical governor for another. I do understand that when people are on public assistance, it's your money. We need to change the intention by which you get public assistance to ensure that it's there to help you off of assistance after a specified amount of time, that you're off the program completely, instead of engaging in a system that just keeps you in that cycle and won't let you off of it because you can't afford to get off of it, because you actually make more money by staying on the system than coming out of the system. I've seen the debates on both sides. Now, I want to be very careful when I say this. I cannot support random drug testing based upon where your dollars are coming from, even though I'm fully aware that those dollars, in terms of how you make your living, come from public wealth or from your dollars. But I will tell you this: I will ensure that there's a sunrise and sunset date on every penny that someone on public assistance takes to ensure the intention is done correctly.
Follow-up, and would you support I was in the military, we had random drug testing. Do you support it for that, each candidate? Or is that an invasion of my personal privacy?
You either do it to everybody or nobody. Random is you know, if
No,
you
in
think
the
that's-
military.
If you think, no, I mean, if you think that's part of what we should be doing, everybody should experience it. Otherwise, no, it shouldn't just be random. Why should we just pick
Okay,
someone?
so you don't support it?
I don't support random things like that.
I do. I'm in the Marine Corps right now, but the bigger question and what your intention is, then what's the difference? That's your intention. What's the difference?
Correct.
And here is the difference. When I'm in the Marine Corps and I'm working in the Marine Corps, whether somebody's giving me the drugs or I'm buying the drugs, my job is to protect this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'm in duty. I'm in uniform. That is my responsibility. That, in other words, they have a right because the Marine Corps has a right to do that because I work for the Marine Corps. When you have a citizen that is eligible one way or the other for public assistance, the government is not it's not the same thing. The government does not have the right in terms of following that trail of dollars to say, listen, we're going to randomly test you whether or not you have drugs or not, because the assumption is that money you're getting from public assistance was the vehicle used to purchase the drugs. What if the drugs were given to the gentleman or the lady for free? What if she stole them? You just can't tie the two together. It's not that clear cut.
Yeah, we'll end this question, but the point of the question was, if you're on drugs, the chance of you getting off public assistance is lower if we believe that drugs are not good for us. So I'm not saying they're using the money they're getting from the government for the drugs, but the point is, you have to, it's like supporting your kid. If he's in school and he's doing drugs, you'd probably cut the support for your kid.
Barry, hold on. You brought yourself into debate, so stay right on in with it.
I promise my wife I'm not
I'm
running.
sure, but it's too late now. Not unless, again, that's why I said this earlier, because I've examined this issue. If there's a clear sunrise and sunset date on when you take the public assistance, it makes it easier. If your child's in college and you're given and you're paying for it, and he goes on drugs, there's a time you either go to flunk out of college or college will end. The way the system's set up now, you can stay on public assistance eternally. In a Lollar administration, that can't happen. There'll be a sunrise and a sunset date. If you squander your opportunity staying high, you're going to end up without at the end of that sunset date as a result of our policies.
Okay, that's a great question then. How long would you support, specifically months, somebody being on public assistance? If there is a Charles first.
That's going to be taken on a case-by-case basis. Why? Because different people have different positions they are in life to get them from where they are to where they want to go. Listen, I want to help folks. Again, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. And Barry, I know you do too. We want to help people. So whatever that process is, if you have a parent or a single parent with 3 children, it may take her a little bit longer to get off assistance than say a single mom with one child. We don't know. We just want to make sure on a case-by-case basis, put me in the seat so I can develop this program fully, that there is a definite sunrise and sunset date, and it's going to be done on a case-by-case basis to get them off of welfare and into workfare.
Okay. Would you reform the Maryland Earned Income Tax Credit? What would the reform look like? Does everybody know what that is? If you make a certain amount or below a certain amount, you get money from the government to supplement your income. I believe Charles.
question down, so. Hell, I got a second question. No, I don't need to go back to that one, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Would you reform the Maryland Earned Income Tax Credit? What would you reform look like?
Who are you going to this time?
Let's go with you since
All right.
you did this.
If we eliminate income tax, that would disappear. So by phasing out the income tax, that goes away, and it isn't needed anymore.
Charles?
Our plan requires over 5 years a complete phase out of the state income, of personal income tax. So yes, we phase that out, we won't need it.
Okay. What effect will the proposed purchase of Pepco by Exelon have on environmental sources of power? Currently, Pepco uses approximately 6% renewables. In fact, I'd like to expand on that. Do you support the purchase of Pepco by Exelon? And I think Charles would be first.
Yeah. Here's what I know about Petco. They're extremely inefficient. They have just received yet another, and when I say inefficient, I mean inefficient. They are the most inefficient electric company in the country according to the last standards that came out, and they've just received even more permission to tax their, not tax, but increase their citizens, their bills for promised and future commitments to make their current electricity more reliable. Whether I agree, when it comes to the purchase of Pepco, I'm going to look into it because I'm not exactly sure whether it's a good thing or not. But I can tell you that I'm not happy with Pepco and the way they're treating their customers with these trackers and other things to increase rates for inefficiencies they currently have.
Did either of you support assisted onsite?
Actually, they bought out BGE, which is the one that affects most of Harford County, and they've done a relatively good job. But the one thing that I was really opposed to this past session was them being able to come in and change your meter and make it so that you have to say you don't want your meter changed, but you have to pay a $75 fee, you have to pay $11 extra on your monthly bill. So we need a better public service that would oversee those types of organizations, especially if it becomes a total monopoly in the state of Maryland.
Yeah, I think that was a smart meter during peak days and should cut down on your power use, just for information. Okay. Do you support the investing and establishing a 4-year university in Montgomery County? Obviously a local issue. See, I think David, you're first.
Higher education is very important in the state of Maryland. We're one of the best people who live pretty close to a lot of good universities, and actually my team running is the only one that spent all of our time. I went to Towson State College, not Towson University, and then I got my master's from Morgan, and my running mate, Jeannie Hadaway, went to Salisbury State College. We didn't go to some other state to do it. We have excellent higher education in the state, and having it expand, I can tell you, I can understand why that would be important here, because we're very proud in Harford County now that Towson University has built a building at Harford Community College, and even though it's not technically their facility, that you can now go to Harford Community College and do a 2+2 system and never have to drive over to Towson to get your diploma. So having it local and having it down here, and I've actually spoken at that college, at your local community college several times. So I think it is important to have a good competition, and so having it would be very supportive.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Would you support government investing in a 4-year college or university in Montgomery County?
The question is, can we afford it? I'm all for ensuring that costs continue to be affordable for our students to go to college. I would also like to make sure we have internships provided by businesses and manufacturing jobs with our high schools so that our high school students can begin interning their junior and senior years instead of waiting to college to get the college internship with the company, because quite honestly, every student is not going to want to go to college. Some students are going to want to go into mainstream and working Maryland and enter into the middle class. Some may want to go into the military. But when we talk about fully funding colleges in one particular county over another, is it affordable? And if it's affordable, I'm all for it. Right now we spend about $12 billion in education. I think $6 billion of that is for university education. K through 12 is $6 billion. So it just depends on where we're at and if we can afford to do that.
Okay, although it is law of Maryland right now, we still have hopes that we can change it. And I think I know the answer to this, but what are your views on same-sex marriage / union laws? Charles, first.
I'm a traditional marriage guy. That's my belief, and I stick to that. I don't believe that government has the right to tell anyone who they can or cannot be with. I think that's outside of my scope. I'm running to be your governor, so I want to be held accountable for every penny you send to Maryland. I want to hold me and my family accountable to our ethical and moral stance to be the best governor we can be. When it comes to the marriage piece, though, I believe that marriage is a biblical term, and that marriage is between one man and one woman. I just believe that. At the same time, I believe we need to get government completely out of the marriage business altogether. I think anything government gets themselves involved in is a recipe for disaster. My wife and I have been married for 20 years. It'll be 21 October 23rd. Get our anniversary gift. You can remember the day when it comes. If it takes a tax incentive or more money that she can get back on her tax return or or some type of financial gimmick for her to stay married to me, then she married the wrong guy. I don't need any more incentives to stay married to my wife. And the problem is, when people start talking about the word union versus marriage, it really is about dollars and cents. It's not about the word itself, but I take that word personally because to me that word marriage is very sacred. It's a biblical term. So if we can get government out of the marriage business altogether, people won't care what you call them. As long as you don't violate the rights and freedoms of your fellow citizens, you have the right to do whatever you want to do when it comes to being with whoever you want to be with. Just don't ask me to call that marriage, and don't expect me to use tax dollars to fund it.
I've been married for 43 years. Actually, I can go back biblical and say in the Old Testament it wasn't just about one man and one woman. Some of them had more than one woman. But I'm a one man, one woman. And actually our country stood up on that issue one time when Utah wanted to be a state. And they had people who wanted to be married to more than one person. I don't believe government they shouldn't involve that. And I agree that they've changed rules and regulations to push people to say, oh, marriage is what's going to change. I worked with a teacher one time who was traditionally marrying someone so that they could come over from a foreign country, get their green card, and then they were getting divorced a couple of years later, and she was getting paid off for that. So it is a lot about money and those types of things. But if you are an individual, you should have the right to say, this person's the person that I want to be able to have, get my house, or I want them to know what my health care issues are, or things like that. That's a separate issue. That's not marriage. You should be allowed to make private decisions like that on your own. So I'm a traditional marriage person.
Yeah, I just want to take 1 minute as the parent of 2 adopted children. The problem with government getting out is that they force into groups like Catholic Charities to place adopted children in gay couples. So if you're okay with that, then it's okay. I don't think that's what God intended. So therefore, they can't get out of it. And also, they legalize it, and now they're teaching it in all the public schools as equal to traditional marriage. And if you don't think that's happening, you're in a dream world. They told us that 30 years ago they had to get it legal so they could get to your kids. So to say it stays in the church, you're not in reality. And if you're okay with that, but that's the reality. We should all be aware of that the government is and will never be out of it. Okay. Okay, finally, we have 2 minutes, and since Charles started, I'm going to give David the first 2 minutes for his closing statement.
Well, I want to start off by saying you only see 2 of us here because we probably agree on 99% of the issues. Maybe we slightly disagree on how we get accomplished. Probably the major thing I disagree with Charles is that he has the best looking grandson. I know I do.
I got pictures.
Yeah, I do too.
I got pictures.
We have Joey. I do tell people Joey's going to be the next person that wants to be in politics in our family because about a month ago he was talking to Melinda. He calls her Nana. You're the best Nana I've ever had. Melinda started tearing up. I said, did you understand you're the only Nana he's ever had? Sounds like some politician. But we agree, and we've also agreed that when the election's over on June 20, I think it's going to be on June 26th now, we're going to have a unity thing where we put our party back together so that we can make sure that people in Maryland have a choice on November. It's going to be equally important I'm also very proud of my running mate, Jeannie Hadaway. She is a very well-respected person. She's only 37. She is the youngest woman ever elected in the state of Maryland to the House of Delegates. She's a small business owner, and she's so well respected on both sides because of the way she stands up on issues, that she was selected to be the chairwoman of the Women's Caucus, which is 2/3 Democrat. And I do jokingly tell her she'll be the first woman governor in the state of Maryland, just not in 2014. She's got to wait 4 years. So I really appreciate the fact that you had us down here, that you invited us down here, and look forward. The key is make sure you get out and vote for who it is you want, and make sure you get as many of your friends out to vote for whoever you think is the most important and the best one who can do it. Thank you.
You know, when I arrived here, even before that, on Sunday, I knew this was on my calendar and I was so excited. I really was. I couldn't wait to have this forum. I couldn't wait to engage in this conversation because it's always wonderful to be able to talk to like-minded people and be able to really have that discourse. I just had no idea how challenging this forum would be and that there'd be an additional person in the room for governor.
I can do that because I'm not running.
No, that might not be too far, but I'm going to close my comments and be a little bit controversial, but I'm okay with that. Because I want you to know that if you support me, this is what you're getting. I might lose 70% of you, but that's okay. Ken is back there squirming. He is so nervous. He has no idea what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because this is where I am. I believe in speaking from here, and this is the kind of leader you're going to get. We have a huge problem when it comes to being able to agree on 99% of our issues, but knowing which issues are most important, and knowing where we can affect and what we can affect and how. Whether you look at examples from King David or Solomon, I'm sure somebody would have told Solomon, don't you dare tell them that you're going to split that baby in half. Are you out of your mind? Some of you all would probably have fired and not let me be king for a moment any longer from giving that type of wisdom. But I want to close my comments by telling you we have to be wise as a serpent, yet harmless as a dove. We have to understand our adversary and where we're going. We have to understand that Christ gave us all freedoms. And those freedoms, you cannot take someone else's freedom away from them that Christ has given them, even if it's the wrong one. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And again, that comes from almost 20 years of pastoring. Don't tell me I have 15 seconds left. I will govern with every ethical and moral being and fabric in my heart and life to do the right thing as I understand it according to the Word of God as your governor. We may disagree as a result over some things, but at least you know where I'm going to stand. And I'll ensure that our laws live up to that Word of God as much as I can as your governor. But as governor, I'm not your priest. I am your governor. And there's a very real difference between those two occupations.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming. I think if we had this kind of turnout at political events, our country would be in a lot better shape. I want to thank these two guys for having the guts to come up here. Every time you go to debate, I ran for Congress back in 1990. We had 13 Lincoln Day dinners.
Oh, you don't say.
And they're always very challenging, to say the least. And most of the time, the guy asking the questions is usually pretty quiet, but that's just not me. But anyway, I hope you've learned something, and I advise you to take whatever literature they have, go to their websites, tell your friends if you really like somebody, get them out to vote. I think that's the biggest problem we have with our young people, that they see things going wrong, and so many of our generation don't even care to vote. And there's too many. I'm going to a funeral at Arlington tomorrow, and every time I go there, I think about all these young kids who gave their lives so you and I could sit here with these guys, free to disagree, etc. We're not worried about being taken off to prison. And that's a very, very tremendous gift that the majority of the world does not have. That's what you got to remember. Okay, so whether either one of these guys wins, you know, we got to protect and be involved and try to make the world a better place. Okay, now I want to take pick a card for whoever wins. If you pick your card, I won't